Good evening and welcome to Left, Right and Centre. I'm Ankita Mukherjee. India's pre-budget economic report, the annual economic survey, has predicted India will have the fastest growing major economy in the coming fiscal, but it has also flagged job creation as a pressing concern and hints that this could be a key focus of Budget 2018. New data derived from Employees Provident Fund Organisation accounts suggests that contrary to the jobless growth narrative, at least 5.5 million jobs were created annually. However, this flies in the face of other reports, like a CMIE report that says 1.5 million jobs were lost in the quarter right after demonetization and another 0.4 million in May-June 2017. The government's own figures put out by the Labour Bureau in its quarterly employment survey also paint a rather dismal picture. We asked tonight, amid this multiplicity of data, just what is the real situation? Will Budget 2018 in fact revive jobs? What are various sectors hoping for? We'll have that discussion in a moment. But coming up also later on the show tonight, as Kasganj in Uttar Pradesh simmers for the fifth straight day, now riot politics peaking. We'll have politicians across the spectrum joining us on that discussion as well. But first, the impact of demonetization on migrant workers had been particularly devastating. 25% of migrant workers returning home after that note ban. Despite some recovery, are jobs fewer on the ground? We begin tonight with a ground report from Thiruvananthapuram by my colleague Sneha Merikoshi.
S. Suresh, a migrant worker from Tamil Nadu, has returned to work in this restaurant in Kerala's capital after 5 months. He was one of the 5 staff who was sent back indefinitely on leave soon after demonetization. Rajesh Chetri, a migrant worker from Assam, returned to Thiruvananthapuram 8 months back in the hope of better jobs and wages in the construction industry. He had gone back to his family in Assam in February 2017 after he was left jobless for almost 25 days post-demonetization. As they all wait at the labour chalk, jobs seem elusive today.
20-25 दिन तो ऐसे सीरियल से बैठा तो अभी काम चल रहा है मैम थोड़ा बहुत.
Labour Department sources suggest that around 25% migrants left for their homes soon after demonetization. Despite the recovery in demand for them, industry experts say jobs are fewer.
But however, in the government works where because of delayed payments etc., there have been issues. So as business sentiment improves and as well as the economy in the construction sector and infrastructure improves, those things would be a change.
A survey by Gulati Institute states around 25 lakh migrants are present in Kerala. But the latest estimates by Kerala government suggest a figure of just around 10 lakhs. This discrepancy of data, or the complete lack of it on many counts, makes the possible analysis of the impact of jobs or the lack of it on migrants extremely difficult.
Sneha Koshi for NDTV.
Well, joining us tonight on Left, Right and Centre, Kiran Mazumdar-Shaw, CMD of Biocon India. Shobna Kamineni, President of the CII, is with us tonight. Mohandas Pai, Chairman of the Manipal Global Education Services, also joining us. Arun Kumar, economist, in the studio with us tonight, as is Dorab Sapariwala, our in-house expert and analyst. Professor Arun Kumar, let me begin with you. The economic survey seems to be saying in so many words that jobs will remain a pressing concern in the medium term. Do you agree with that assessment, and what is it that the budget can really do?
So, it would remain a concern because you see the impact of demonetization GST was very largely on the unorganized sector. And it's the unorganized sector data which is a problem. So the new data that has come out about EPFO, etc., that really doesn't capture the unorganized sector. So while it does capture a certain kind of data, but we also expected that the organized sector was not hit and therefore the problem would not be there. But if you look at the employment elasticity, whether it be in agriculture, whether it be in industry, whether it be in services, employment elasticity have been very low for the last 25 years. And therefore, even if we have 6.5% rate of growth in the organized sector, it doesn't mean many jobs are being created. So I think we need to re-look at this EPFO data, etc., which many analysts have commented on, saying that there's a recounting in some sense of people who probably were in the informal sector and now they're being counted under EPFO in the formal sector. So that doesn't necessarily mean that. Second is that in India, because we don't have social security, people are not unemployed. People are underemployed. You know, they are doing something, they go to the chalk like your story showed, they're at the chalk, they're waiting for jobs. You know, they get 1-day job or 2-day jobs or 3-day jobs, and they then get counted as, you know, in the weekly data, they get counted as people with jobs. So in other words, the definition of who's employed and who's unemployed also matters in this context. Thirdly, it's technology which matters, you know. Technology, actually what it's been doing is displacing labor in a wide level, and that is what, you know, has happened in the industry and various other sectors, that capital intensive industries are coming in, especially in the organized sector, and they're not generating jobs. So what you may have is that these industries are generating contract jobs, etc., which are not getting counted as the organized sector jobs. But they're also creating different kinds of jobs which probably need to be counted. So there are several kinds of issues regarding technology, regarding public finance, regarding the investment pattern in the economy, and the real big story there is the investment rate, which had peaked in 2007-8 at 38%, has dropped to about 27%.
All right, lots of issues that you're raising over there, and I want to take these up one at a time. Mohandas Pai, you've actually sort of backed that Ghosh and Ghosh study that looked at payroll data and extrapolated that about 5.5 million jobs would have been created by the end of the financial year 2018. Critics seem to say that EPFO data or EPFO registration does not necessarily mean that new jobs are being created.
Let me explain this very properly. Give me some time. I think people who criticize, including Professor Arun, should read the entire report before they comment. This report is about payroll. Payroll means a person who gets a regular salary with social security like EPF and ESI. There are 9.2 crore jobs in this country which get a regular salary, pay ESI or pay pension contribution, including 2.5 crores in the government sector. That's the total stock of payroll. Now, when you talk about the EPFO, the Ghosh report states very clearly that they have taken 8.2 crore pieces of data. They removed 1 crore people who came from the informal to the formal sector because of an amnesty the government declared from January to June. And that means all those people who are outside the sector, whose jobs are already there, they came to the system, they have been removed. They cleaned up the data, and they took only those data for the people in the age group of 18 to 25 who paid the contribution for the first time and continued for the rest of the year. And most of the jobs were clustering around 22. So the probability of them getting the first job is the highest in the sector. There are many people who came into the system in the higher age groups and they were not taken and they have been discounted. But that job more or less accurately counts the number of formal sector jobs. We're talking about formal sector jobs. We're not talking about informal sector jobs. And I think it gives a best indication of the jobs. Out of this 5.5 million, we must remember that the net increase will be less, which is there in the report, because 1.5 million to 2 million, that's 15 lakh to 20 lakh people who are in the EPF retire every year. And you can get the figure because they get a pension at the age of 58 or maybe when they retire. And the pension figures are going up with the same number. So that increase will be slightly lower. But younger people in the age group of 18 to 25 are getting jobs and the jobs are being counted. In the first instance, there is no double counting. There is no formalization happening because 1 crore jobs have been done. And even if there's some formalization happening because somebody were having 19 employees, they went to 21, it could be in the later age jobs too. So they discounted that. I think it's a reasonably accurate study which has been done.
Accurate.
We read a report by Jayanam Ramesh which criticized without giving any data.
Yes. Okay, we're quoting that as you speak.
I mean,
but
if you don't want to believe data
I'd like you to come in now.
Nobody can help you because your ideology is totally wrong.
Yeah. All right. You know, before we go into ideologies, EPFO data sets may reflect new additions accurately,
no, there
which
is
is the point
By
that
the way,
I
have read the report just for the record.
What about job losses? Yeah. Does EPFO data also reflect job losses as accurately?
I don't think. Let us look at the thing more broadly.
Certainly.
No.
The report starts by saying that Indian data is misleading, which is true. Most Indian data is infrequent, the coverage is inadequate, and the samples are small. So I think to question it is the right thing to do. which is so for that Ghosh and Ghosh need to be complemented. The question is that when you bring out a totally new set of data, you do two things. One is give me a trend. So I can see it going back 10 years to see what is happening. Not tell me this year. You know, a point on a graph means nothing. A line on a graph means something. So firstly, do that. And secondly, when you bring something so new, since both of you are near academics, one is an academic and one is an almost academic, you get it peer reviewed, which has not been done. Now let me get to something that reflects on the data that Ghosh and Ghosh have presented. Last night there was a presentation on NDTV, but Pranoy Roy interviewed Arvind Subramaniam. The number of registrations in GST have gone up. You know, all the people who are paying excise, service tax, VAT, we all got registered again.
Right.
That was 6.4 million, is now gone to 9.8 million. Does that mean the economy grew and we all? Now the question is, how did that happen? It was a matter of compliance more than anything else. So are you by firms complying, you're automatically getting into the EPFO net? That is the fundamental issue. Also, don't forget there are other surveys like the CMIE survey on employment. Now, you know, a CMIE survey, they have 160.
This is not a survey, this is data.
Yes, but I'm saying the CMIE survey. I'm not talking the Ghosh and Ghosh survey. I'm talking CMIE survey.
This data, firm data, money coming into the
Ghosh and Ghosh data.
Don't confuse the issue.
What is data? Data is something at a matter of point. Data is like a photograph. What
data is?
Mr. Gupai, I'm not an expert as you are, but would you let me complete? I'd be most grateful, you know. I think, you know, if I might be allowed.
Please go ahead.
Yeah,
Mr. Pai will come back to you in a moment.
Mr. Pai, you'll get your turn. You always get your turn. Why don't you let me have a turn, for God's sake?
Carry on, please.
Sorry, what was I saying? You know, you
about it being data and about being.
The question is, what CMIE has is 160,000 households, more than 5 lakh individuals over the age of 15, giving data monthly. So it's like a movie. You say a man didn't have a job, entered an organized sector job, retired, took an. You can plot each guy. Now the data is believed to be good enough that Niti Aayog is going to publish it from September.
Yes.
So it can't be thoroughly useless data. I'm saying when you do something that's way out, which doesn't pass the smell test, you've got to give an reasonable explanation. Now let's take Ghosh and Ghosh. There are 10 crore people in the organized sector on the report. 70 lakh new jobs were added. That's 7% of the stock. A flow is 7% of the stock. Now we've been doing for 60 years, and if we had 7% every year, we wouldn't have enough people to work, and that in a year when your employment is low. Your GDP is not growing, industrial production is not growing, exports are not growing.
I can hear Mohandas Pai disagreeing with you. But Kiran Mazumdar-Shaw, I want to bring you in here to really widen it beyond the various sort of...
Let me explain to Saurabh, please.
Yeah, okay, Mr. Pai, very quickly, but I do need to sort of bring in other panelists as well. Go ahead.
Well, let me say that 1 crore jobs which came as part of the amnesty have not been counted. That answers Saurabh's question about formality. Yes, there are 55 lakhs that have come in. Like I told you, these are not the net job. The report says very clearly that there are retirements, so the net jobs will be lower by about 2 million. But these are young people who got jobs for the first time, and that is the data. And please remember, when the economy grows at 7%, we have 500 million people who are 500 million people who are in the labor force. So it is not growing by 35 million, 7% of 500 million. It's not growing like that. It's only growing in the formal sector because the formal sector is increasing its revenues, and we are seeing that growth happening because in the formal sector, people pay real money to join. I think that's been answered. As for the picking up the 2-year, 3-year set, the EPFO data went live only 2 years ago, and before earlier than 2 years, the data sets are not available, they're not reliable. The data is all garbage, they're not been put in the database, so you can't go back 10 years. For Saurabh, say, give me 10 years data, get it peer reviewed. Now take it for what it is. If you don't believe it, don't believe it, but don't make fictitious claims. You can't go back 10 years because there's no data. You have taken the data for the last 2 years because it came in database.
I want to bring in
a study made. Take it for what it is.
I want to bring in Kiran Mazumdar-Shaw at this point. You know, before we get sort of bogged down in too much nitty-gritty over one particular data survey, would you broadly agree that job creation is one of the biggest challenges this government faces? How is the finance minister going to address this in the budget? And you know, if indeed investment has been sluggish, where are these jobs being created? And if this is the level of job creation, as the Ghosh and Ghosh report suggests, then why is consumption growth been so sluggish?
So let me try and answer this in two ways. One is that I think it is a fact that there is underemployment rather than calling it unemployment, as one of the panelists earlier mentioned. Secondly, there is no doubt about it that even if we've created the number of jobs that Mohandas Pai talked about, we are still woefully short of the actual numbers that need to be created to keep up with the kind of GDP growth rate that we aspire for. You know, we hear about numbers of 1 million jobs a month, and we are not quite there yet. But having said that, I also want to raise another issue, and that issue is, how are we also defining new jobs? Because everything doesn't come under the EPFO scheme. I think we must understand that there are many jobs being created, like the new digital jobs. Like for instance, we know that there are claims that Ola and Uber themselves have created a few million jobs. Now, how are we accounting for that? And there are many other such jobs that are being created in this new tech kind of ecosystem, and we still haven't accounted for those jobs. There may be a debate of, is this the right kind of job or the wrong kind of job, but according to me, these are important jobs for the future. So the definition of jobs need to change. We have an archaic definition of jobs that links it to some system, some scheme, some reporting data system. I think we need to change that definition. How do we get these new jobs to be counted? I think that is the big question we need to also ask. I for one believe that there is a huge potential of creating jobs. We haven't put our heads together to see where those new jobs can be created. And how do we answer this question of underemployment, and how do we focus on job creation through these new job opportunities? And I think that's where I really want to focus our attention. For instance, we get very lost in motherhood statements, and we don't get into really effective implementation of new ideas. That really is the question. I see it in every sphere. You know, I'm very glad that the economic survey for the first time talked about underinvesting in science and technology and about where we should be investing in science and technology. But I don't agree with the kind of strategies that are being talked about, because it's impractical. And there are many, we should do this and we shouldn't do that. We know we haven't been able to do it. So why can't we get into policies that can actually effect change?
Okay, Shobhana Kamineni, you know, take off from where Kiran Majumdar-Shaw is coming into this discussion. Are we defining new jobs correctly? Professor Arun Kumar made the point about technology displacing labor, but Kiran makes the point that in fact, if anything, there are sectors that are generating new jobs. For instance, she talks about Ola and Uber. From the perspective of India Inc., would you say that perhaps the definition of definition of jobs needs to change?
I think that the actual conversation has moved away from jobs to work. Around the world, people are really calling it about work, and because there are people who will go in, and it's no longer about a 9 to 5. They do think that it's productive, even if you can work, you know, sporadically 4 days a week, even 2 days a week. And this is what we have to look at now, the new definition, from jobs to work. The second thing is, I heard an interesting definition that it's moved from that there was white collar and there's blue collar, and now it's called new collar. All the young people that are getting into jobs, like Kiran spoke about, e-commerce and so many new industries, and even single entrepreneurs. So what are they called? They're called new collars. And I like the way that when we spoke about this, Piyush Goyal said, actually you can call them no collars. So this is the thing, that conversations of jobs are now reaching very interesting inflection points. They're talking now on one side about the quantity of jobs, and this is something that you really have to bring up. Where are those quantities going to come from? The quantities are going to come from traditional sectors that went away, construction. Even in China, for almost 20 years, 56% to 60% of the jobs came from the construction industry. This has really moved away now. We have to think about jobs in sectors like textiles that really create high number of jobs, my own sector of healthcare, and in tourism. These are two sectors. Healthcare today is the 5th largest employer. Why can't it be even the top or the second? And these are the new areas that will be created through better education. The next part is about quality jobs, and I think I don't want to get into it because I agree with a lot of what Kiran spoke about. So this is really the conversations that are happening live in companies, and these are the same conversations that I've heard in the government in many of the spaces that I've moved in, including in around the world.